It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
And John's back in the studio, and he has full voice quality, full broadcast quality, right?
That's right.
That's right. Okay, we touched on this earlier. Okay, John, how much of this Cardinals thing is that the team sucks, and how much of this Cardinals thing, we're talking about the fact that, and first off, yesterday, people were saying there's only 11,000 people at the stadium yesterday. Okay, it was a day game, and it was 5,000 degrees. Okay, so
Yep.
How much of this is the Cardinals suck, and how much of this people just don't want to go downtown anymore?
It's never just one thing, so it's multifactorial, to be clear. And also, we've seen in other years, if you look at other years as a guide, in years in which, go back to 2008, you go back to years where if the Cardinals are not in contention by, say, Labor Day, then you're going to see attendance drop off significantly. And people who dislike the Cardinals in other cities, as long as Twitter has been around, will mock Cardinal fans years that Cardinals are not in contention and show shots of the stadium where there's only, back in the day when there'd only be 20,000 people there, and mock the Cardinals for not drawing people out. To answer your question, Brad, a lot of it is crime, and a lot of it is not having a competitive team on the field, or not having a team that's at least in pennant contention right now.
Well, I've had dealings with the Cardinals, and quite honestly, I mean, dealings on a professional broadcast level. We used to broadcast the games on our one station on what is now crap, which back in the day was 1350 the mouth, okay? And we did that for 5 years. Matter of fact, it was interesting. The first year we did it, 2006, they won. That was the first year they were in their new stadium, and they won the World Series. I believe they won the World Series that year. Didn't they win it in 2006? Okay.
Yep, they beat the Tigers that year.
Right, and for a long time, you couldn't get a seat at Busch Stadium. They were all sold out, stuff like that. There were things being posted the other day. I don't know if you saw this or not. I don't know if this was bogus or not, but I saw this on several Facebook feeds where they were screenshots of people who were going, I guess it's StubHub or something like that, and they were posting low prices of tickets. And this is what do they call this, the dynamic pricing thing. And at one point in time, I saw someone posting that they could get 2 tickets for free. Is that a real thing? Were they really giving away free tickets?
You mean when you say they, do you mean the Cardinals?
Well, I don't know. It was somebody. It was somehow, in other words, it showed some kind of a screenshot where you could, and it showed the seats and it showed the view. You know how they have where you.
Maybe that was StubHub. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be Cardinals dynamic pricing. Yeah, on StubHub, I didn't know that you could offer them for free, but I could imagine you being able to give them away for a penny or something like that. Sure.
And see. There was a couple different posts yesterday that people going like, well, what do you think's wrong with the Cardinals? And I went on there and, in all candor and honesty, I said the problem is the stadium's 18 years old. We need a new stadium. Taxpayers should pony up. How in this world can you expect a team to play in an old, decrepit stadium? It's just like I heard somebody the other day talk about the antiquated dome, okay? The dome is 30 years old. Isn't it like 30 years old now? It's not even 30 years old because they didn't build it in 94. I think the first year the Rams actually played it, wasn't it like 96 or 97 when because remember?
Yeah, I think because we got the team in 94?
Yeah, and they played in Busch Stadium for a couple years.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. So, I mean, here we go once again.
I would compare it to, though, we talked about this once before on the show. I think generally a good rule of thumb is the Leonardo DiCaprio rule. So if it's much over 18, like you just want to scrap it and replace it, like start over fresh.
Much over.
Like you're not gonna mess around inside something that's 30 years old, right, Brad?
There's a.
I mean, playing in a stadium.
I'm not gonna touch that. Okay,
You're not gonna make a delivery inside a 30-year-old vehicle, are you?
Not gonna touch that one either. Okay, there's a famous. What was it? What's his name? Gervais. What's his name?
Yeah, Ricky. He was talking about some long movie. I forgot which one it was.
Right. There's a classic thing where he's the MC. I think it's the Golden Globes Award.
It was the Golden Globes, yeah.
And he made a comment. The movie was so long that by the end of the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio's date was too old for him.
That was probably the best line. That stand-up is still gem. It's still fantastic.
And can you imagine they hired that guy? Well, he doesn't do it every year, but he did it for years. I think they finally got rid of him. He is so funny. I mean,
yeah, and because he says stuff that people think but are afraid to say out loud.
Well, back in the day, he's like the old Howard Stern. You know, the reason people loved Howard Stern was because, I mean, he would say things that nobody else would say. And when he interviewed people, he would ask the questions that nobody else would ask. Now, like when he interviewed Joe Biden, was that like 3 or 4 months ago? I mean, talk about a suck-up interview. I mean, and once again, I'm not trying to say that, and to the point where there was an interview that I did recently that I could have asked the question to, but I refrained from. And matter of fact, I had people texting me saying, why didn't you ask him blah, blah, blah? And I thought to myself, no, mainly because of the fact that this was a setup interview that somebody else set me up. You know what I'm talking about?
I could take a guess. Sure, it wasn't on this show though.
It was on this show.
Okay.
But the point being is that I didn't want to stir the pot, and I should have probably stirred the pot. But it was interesting because I had several people say I was being a P word by not asking.
Yeah, pansy, a 5-letter that ends in Y, which would be pansy.
Right, not necessarily asking the question, but that's neither here nor there. Okay.
Was it from a former candidate? By the way, was the person you interviewed a former candidate?
No.
Oh, okay. I think I know then. Go ahead.
Okay. Here we are. I'm perusing I couldn't do this because of the fact that I was on the phone and I couldn't use my phone. I'm perusing the websites, okay? The Fox News website, the topic, the headline is number one story. Critics hammer VP Harris for claiming my values have not changed amid recent policy flip-flops. Okay, then you go over to CNN, and the CNN is takeaways from CNN's interview with Harris and Walz. The vice president explained how she plans to deal with Trump and win the presidency in their first exclusive interview since becoming Democratic nominee. John, put on your bias cap. Do you see a bias between those two websites?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
In the second one, she's a real boss girl, and she's overcoming the hurdle that is Donald Trump.
But I saw so many people, and many of them women, saying that they thought it was a bad look for her to have Tim Walz there with her. How did you feel about that?
Oh, I think she needs him there.
Why do you say that?
Even though I think he comes as kind of milquetoast and kind of limp and kind of like suburban sitcom dad, it still ameliorates your concerns that the country's going to be in the hands of a black woman.
Well, the thing I saw, especially from women, they were saying like, she's a strong woman. Why does she need a guy there with her? And I thought to myself, you know what? I never thought about that.
Well, it's a running mate. And I mean, by the way, Brad, we're biased because, and I mean, we as a country are biased because for 4 years we had Donald Trump as president who doesn't want or need anybody standing by him. But I would see if this was 1992, let's be hypothetical, they could see George Bush wanting to introduce the country, or I'm sorry, 1988. I would want to see George Bush trying to introduce the country to some guy nobody heard of from the Midwest named Dan Quayle. So I think that's what Kamala's doing. And also, I think it's a way for Kamala to say to her, like short-haired, angry, feminist supporters, hey, I endorse this Walz guy. He's with me. He's by my side. I know you hate him because he's a white man and he's the patriarchy, but he's okay. He's here with me.
But you don't think it was a situation where he was there so that if the questions got tough, he could come in and mansplain it? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think. I think any woman that says that is transferring her own issues onto Kamala.
Well, I see the whole thing. This is uncharted territory. I mean, let's be honest. We've already had one black president, and now we're and I will say we'll have the second black president. By the way, did you get that Wikipedia I sent you?
I did. Yeah, I skimmed it. Yeah, so that's her dad, right?
Yeah, that's her father. And I said that her mother and father had passed away. I think it was earlier this week, and then I caught myself. Thought to myself, you know what? I don't. Come to think of it, I don't think he is. I think he's still alive. And what's interesting was he will not grant interviews. And the only public comment he's made within the last several years is he got very upset with her when I believe she was on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God. And he asked Kamala, I think this is 2 or 3 years ago or something like that, about the fact that does she ever smoke marijuana? And she sort of laughed. She says, "Well, I'm from Jamaica. What do you think?" or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And her father got really offended about that, and essentially say, "Look, you are perpetrating a stereotype that everyone in Jamaica is stoned all the time." And I thought that was very interesting of him. And
if that's true, if the media report that he got upset is actually true.
You don't believe that, though? Supposedly he...
Well, I mean, these sound like the kind of stories that one person is going to report that the dad is upset, and then people take that at face value. I don't believe anything I hear anymore, though, Brad.
John's a great guy.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't believe it. I don't believe anything. If somebody's like, well, somebody said, I'd be like, well, where? Oh, it's in one media source. Oh, sure. Okay.
John's
maybe the reason why he doesn't want to talk to the media is because people made up a dumb story that he got mad about her smoking weed and then reported it incorrectly. And he says, I'm done with all you guys.
John's the best talk show host in the world.
Well, that's incorrect.
John's website is the most viewed website in the world.
It's not. And by the way, if you're listening to this is a good reminder, Brad, because there's only one thing you say on this show that's incorrect time and again, Brad. You know what that is? There's only one thing.
What is that?
It is when you say at the beginning of the show, you need to go to John's website. Nobody needs to go to my website.
Why not?
If people don't go to my website, you don't need to go to my website. And I know it's coming from a good place, Brad, but nobody needs to go to my website. You don't need to go to your iPad, your phone, your computer, and type in johnconvest.com. Nobody needs to go to my website. Their life would be fine if they didn't go to my website.
Yeah, but doesn't it enhance their life when they do? Doesn't it make them a better person? Doesn't it make them informed?
I wouldn't say it makes them a better person. In some respects, it might make them more angsty because they would see, oh, my God, I'm missing out on this Delta 8 profit opportunity. Oh, my God, I'm missing out on the fact that I should have registered to be a professional engineer. They might cause them more angst, Brad.
You look back at that now that you're referring to the fact that someone came after Jay Ashcroft and he claiming he's an engineer, but yet he's not registered with the state of Missouri as a professional engineer. You look back at it now, and you think to myself, how petty do our elections get? You know what I mean?
So petty. It's so petty.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. Okay, the elephant in the room. John's probably not going to be happy when I talk about this, okay? When we did the show yesterday, I essentially said, hey, tomorrow's going to be an interesting show, blah, 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 blah. And John called me off the air later and said, okay, what are you talking about? Earlier this month, John said, I don't know if I want to do the show anymore. And I'm not trying to
we're done. Yeah, go ahead and tell the story, Brad.
Well, John said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And I said, okay, fine. And he said, when's the last show? I said, when's the last show? He says, we'll finish out the month Labor Day. Okay, so
yeah.
Did that happen or not?
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. Yeah, and by the way, I took a risk based on a faulty assumption. And I was way wrong, Brad. We could get to that in a minute.
Well, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I really enjoyed doing this, and yet I didn't say anything to hardly anybody. Matter of fact, I think I told one person that today was possibly going to be the last BJ show. Maybe I told 2 people. I can't remember. Told very few people. And they were going like, what? I go, oh, John just doesn't want to do it anymore. Why is that? I don't know. He says he doesn't want to do it anymore. Okay, fine. So I say this on the air yesterday. We're finishing up the show, and then John calls me, texts me, says, hey, call me. And he goes, what are you talking about tomorrow? Well, it's the last show. Well, it's not our last show tomorrow. I go, well, you said it was going to be. John's done a 180. I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, John needs to run for president because he's changed his mind. Once again, the guy who used to be against fracking is now for fracking. The guy that used to be for abortion is now against abortion. The guy that used to be for driving on the right side of the street is now looking at the English model and say, those Brits have it right, we should be on the left side of the highway. Did I typify that correct, John?
I think so. And here's a logical fallacy that I make that I think is instructive for other people. When we talked weeks ago, Brad, like when you have a friendship with people and when you're testing people out, I thought, Brad, foolishly, and here's a spoiler, it's foolishly. I thought if I said to you, hey, Brad, I don't see much of a vision for where the station is going. It doesn't seem like there's much of a plan. I think we should just be done. I think I'm just going to go do something else. I thought you might have put up a little bit of a fight and said, no, John, we should keep doing the show. I'm gonna prioritize the radio station. And that's foolish of me, Brad. I jumped to an assumption. In the last month, not only do I enjoy doing the show with you, but I realize that, first of all, I don't have control over you. And also, this show is a hobby. And I give hours every day to going in. I go in and I fix the low effort blog posts usually. I go in and I add the timestamps. I do an Instagram post. I do tweets. And you know what? This will remain a fun hobby. This is not a professional operation where we execute daily, where we have plans, where we have a vision. This is a hobby, and I need to remind myself of that and not take it so seriously, Brad.
Low effort blog post? Was that a compliment, I think?
Yeah, it was. Well, I have to, because there's no SEO value in what you post and things like that. So I have to go in and fix it. But I go in most days and do that. And then, I spend several hours a day on this show. And I need to remember that it's a hobby and these stations will never be a priority for you. And they'll always be a hobby. And I need to stop putting my own stuff onto you. Do you see what I'm saying, Brad?
So you're saying that me running the stations is a hobby as well, too?
Well, would you do you say that you treat it as a profession?
John, it's my life. It's what I do. I mean, this is people talk about their 401ks and things like that. I don't have a 401k. I don't have any of that stuff. I got radio stations. This is it. This is my life.
I got you. Okay. Well, but my point is, Brad, is that you were right all along in that I think, and that's why I called you about it yesterday, because I want to keep doing the show. And it's common for people, and I should take full responsibility here, for me to be like, hey, if I was in charge, here are the things that we would execute on every day, and here's the things that we would do daily. But this is not my station. Like this is a hobby. And so I should remember that this is supposed to be fun, and I should stop worrying about, okay, every day we need to execute, and we need to make this and this and this. This is just a hobby. This is like stamp collecting, or this is like collecting old lawnmowers. Like it's just a hobby, But
you should tell me those things, and I would appreciate that.
Well, I'm telling you now that it's a hobby.
Well, no. You say that every day there are things that you could say we should be doing this. You know what? I'm open to that kind of stuff. I mean, believe it or not, I get those kind of comments from listeners who will say, and once again, a lot of times when you have someone who listens to the station, they text me or they call me. Some people I know, some people I don't, and they'll go like, I don't know about that, or this was good, you should do more of this, or do less of that kind of stuff. I do take that to mind. And I do understand that some people have an agenda. Somebody say, well, you talk too much about growing up in North County. And because of the fact that in the St. Louis area, nobody talks about that. Everybody, when I went to Parkway.
Well, this would be with the last couple of minutes would be a good time. Do you give thought to what, and you mentioned a couple things to me yesterday, Brad, like do you have ideas about things the time that you would dedicate to these stations, what kind of efforts are you working on?
Well, but what you don't realize behind the scenes, that I'm in the process of trying to upgrade our signal with a new transmitter site, which takes a lot of my time. And unfortunately, there's an interesting situation that's happening in the broadcasting business where there are no broadcast engineers anymore. I am a broadcast engineer. Not the best. I've been doing it for years. But recently, I think a year or two ago, the Society of Broadcast Engineers did a survey, and they came out that the average broadcast engineer, the radio broadcast engineer in the country, is 68 years old. Okay, what does that tell you? There's no new young people coming along. So, unfortunately, I can't make calls to people. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with a guy, and I won't mention his name, who's currently working as a full-time broadcast engineer, and he constantly is getting calls from people all over the Midwest. He says within the last couple of weeks, he's gotten a call from a group of stations in Indiana, and the owner of the station calls me, our engineer just died. We need somebody to come over and fix our transmitter. Okay, I can't farm that out to anybody because there's nobody to farm it out to, and
I know that a lot of your time, Brad, is spent working on transmitter issues and things like that. I understand that.
But I spend, and the interesting thing about this is, and I told you this yesterday, just with our conversation we had earlier in the month, I'm essentially admitting that the Egbert thing was sort of a mistake. It's quirky. I'm a quirky kind of guy. Sometimes I think quirkiness attracts other people, and sometimes I think it turns people off. And I think sometimes, most of the time, people just don't get it. It's over the head of most people. The Egbert thing was quirky, in the point where even like 2 weeks ago, I started on a new website. We're going to rebrand the station. I'm not necessarily going to say what we're going to rebrand it as, and maybe take a little bit of a different tact as far as the direction we're heading with the station. And the idea being is that matter of fact, I even told you the new motto. What bothers me about the talk stations in this town is that you have to be 100% in their camp, or you're ostracized. And probably the best example of that is Rick and Tracy, where if you don't toe their line of ideology, you're a rhino. If you don't, think, and to me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's make this, and I know this sounds, touchy-feely, but let's make this a big tent kind of thing, where, if you are a dyed-in-the-wool Trump fan, hey, jump in the water's just fine. If you think Kamala Harris would make a better president than Donald Trump, you know what? We're not going to criticize you for that. That's your opinion, and to a certain extent, I've said, for weeks now that I don't think that Trump's going to win. I think Kamala's going to be the new president. And, once again, I mean, who knows? I mean, she may be great. She may be horrible. The leaders of the world may have tremendous respect for her. The leaders of the world may think they can walk all over. Who knows? But I'm of the attitude that, like, you know what? I guess it's the old entrepreneur spirit in the meat. How do you increase your successes? You increase your failures. And I know John makes fun of the fact that I try this website and I do that. Some of this stuff is like, you put your finger in the air and you wet your finger and try to feel which way the breeze is blowing. Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes you can't. And sometimes the wind is blowing from the north, but yet people want wind from the south, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, who the hell knows? So anyway, we're moving on down the road, and I'm glad that you're not going to leave, John, and we'll just keep moving on down the road. But, honestly, if you have suggestions, I'm more than willing. And to the point where I give my number out on the air. I mean, it frustrates me that sometimes people make it so hard for you to contact them. My phone number it's sitting right here, 314-280-8880. You can phone me, you can text me. I have people from time to time say, I hear your phone dinging all morning long. That's because people are texting while I'm on the air, complaining about things. Most of the time it's complaints. Occasionally it's a compliment. They'll say like, oh, that was really good. I'm glad you and John talked about that. But most of the time it's people going like, shut up, move on, and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's great.
Well, what do I say? How do I end the show, John? Tell me how to end the show.
Well, I think we will be back after Labor Day because the best way to celebrate working people is to not work. And we'll be back on Tuesday morning.
Okay. Sounds good. Armstrong and Getty, we will. Let me think if I can do this right now. They're in progress right now. I don't even have to do anything. Here they go. Talk to you on Tuesday, John.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?